This week on Throttle Grotto, I have gas problems. Not the internal kind, it's the external kind. Well, actually, I guess they would be external at some point. Anyway, this week is all about trying to figure out fueling issues on the 75 Rabbit and the 83 GTI. What are we trying to figure out? That's going to be up next on this episode of Throttle Grotto. Hey everybody, welcome back. So this week I've been a little short on time, so it's going to be a really short episode. I'm just going to cover a few updates, and I had one little project that I was able to slip in this week, and then a bunch of stuff that I didn't get filmed. So I'll just start with, I've been working really hard this week on trying to get the 83 GTI to run right. And I got the new injectors in, and they spray beautifully, but I'm not getting any fuel to them. So I've been racking my brain trying to go through the manual, look at all the options for the CIS, and figure out why I'm not getting fuel to the injectors. So a couple of things. One, this is a spare warm-up regulator. This actually bolts on the front of the motor. Right on the front of the block, and there's a fuel inlet, a fuel outlet, electrical connection, and there's like a bimetallic strip in here that expands as the engine heats up. So one of these, the inlet was completely blocked with fuel, or not fuel, blocked with sediment. So I cleaned all that out and reinstalled it, and it worked better. I was getting absolutely no fuel at first. Now I have low system pressure. Well, there's two CIS pressures. There's a system pressure and a control pressure. And the control pressure, I believe, is what your injectors receive. So system pressure is what it receives from the fuel tank. I might be wrong. I'll look that up before I upload this video. And if I'm wrong, it'll say like right down here, yep, you're wrong. But, so the problem is, the bottom half of the fuel distributor is getting all the fuel. It's getting, you know, like when you break the line open, it shoots like 3-4 feet like it's supposed to. Top half of the fuel distributor, where the injectors bolt up, is not getting fuel. It's getting like crack the line and it just kind of runs out. So somewhere in the system, and I'm still trying to figure out where it is. I don't have a fuel pressure tester, which would be really handy. But somewhere in the system there is something telling the upper half of the fuel distributor not to send out any fuel to the injectors. So I can get the car running, but number one cylinder just doesn't fire. There's no fuel going in number one cylinder. So that is what I've been like, besides work and getting called in on my day off and all this other stuff. That's what I've been scraping my brain trying to come up with a solution for this week. So if any of you have a solution out there, let me know in the comments below. One thing that I haven't tried yet is when I took the plunger out to make sure it was clean, and it was the fuel distributor that I swapped out. This was the one that was on it, and it looked really crusty and nasty. So it looked really crusty and nasty. I swapped it out with the spare one I had that I thought was good. It could still be good, I don't know. But still having the same or similar issues. So I pulled the plunger out to clean it, and the plunger mounts in the bottom of the fuel distributor. And I don't know if I can show it here. Now, so you take the fuel distributor off of the sensor plate, and then in the bottom of here there's a plunger that sticks out about that far, and that's what actuates the fuel distributor. So I took it out to clean it, and apparently it's indexed, so it can go in one of 6 ways. If you put it in like any one of the 6 that's not right, it supposedly doesn't work. So I'm still trying to confirm that. I've got some feelers out to some people that know this CIS stuff a lot better than I do, and hopefully I'll have a solution to that fairly soon. An update on the Jetta wagon project. I still haven't sold it. I cannot believe that this is the car I have had an absolute, like, the worst time trying to sell. And the reason is nobody even wants to look at it. Like, if I can get someone to look at it, I can probably sell it. It's a Jetta wagon. I've dropped the price considerably. I started out at $4,500, which was comparable this summer. Prices on these cars are dropping like rocks. So it's down to $2,500, and I'm still not getting any bites. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to give it another month or so. It may be a completely failed experiment making money on this Jetta wagon, so we'll see. The only other thing that I'm going to get done this week is the fuel tank. The fuel tank on the Rabbit. And I'll tell you the reason for it, and then so why I'm going through the effort of what I'm going to do, and then we'll have a solution by the end of this episode. So the reason that I have to inspect the fuel tank is since we're putting fuel injection in, I have to know if I can use this tank at all to work with fuel injection. So I can mount an external pump on the tank and get the system pressure I need. I can run lines to and from it, but I need to know A, what kind of condition the tank is in internally, and B, if there's any baffling in it. So we're going to cover that the rest of this episode. Alright, so I figured I'd explain why the fuel tank is a big deal on the early cars. So the swallowtail cars are different than the like the German car. Well, so let me back up. The swallowtail cars are different than the other ones, like the regular German-built cars or the U.S.-built Westmoreland cars. One of the differences is it's in the fuel tank here. So I'll get you guys so you can see the fuel tank. Get some light on it. So if you remember when we were talking about there's no access panel from inside the car, that's because the fuel tank sender mounts in sideways. And here's how it works. So it mounts in like this, and it actuates sideways to show the fuel level. So one of the questions we have to answer is there baffling in this tank? Because if there's no baffling in this tank, when you take a hard right corner, all the fuel is going to go to the driver's side of the car, and then you're going to starve the engine for fuel. It's going to shut off, and you're going to have to restart it. So what we have is this little bundle of wiring here, which is going to wirelessly hooks to my phone. It's a wireless borescope. It's got a little camera on the end here that has like some LEDs on the end of it. And what we're going to do is I'm going to set this thing up, and then I'm going to take a look inside the fuel tank and see if there's any baffling in there. So I get to check it out without actually having to pull the tank off and go through all those motions. So let me get configured here, and then we will take a look inside this tank. Plus, I kind of want to see what condition the tank's in, because I may be able to sell the tank to someone doing a restoration, or not worry about it and just throw it in the metal recycling. Okay, so we are hooked up to the wireless borescope. We'll see. So you can see there's the exceptionally dirty floor I haven't cleaned. So we'll just not look at that. But for a $20 tool, it works pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the flashlight into the fuel tank so that we can have enough light to actually see what we're doing. And then we kind of have to work. So the good thing is this tank is ridiculously clean inside. Like, I mean, this is the original fuel tank, and you see that little bolt right there down in the center. I'll take the light off of it so it's a little easier to see. But that's actually a drain bolt for the fuel tank. They don't do that kind of stuff in cars anymore. So yeah, this fuel tank is in amazing condition for a... Well, we did get to answer some questions today. Yes, the floor of my garage is dirty. So the inside of that 75 fuel tank is in amazing condition. And I really have to decide now, am I going to use the original fuel tank, original sender, or am I just going to replace it all with a fuel-injected tank, a lift pump on the top, and an extension harness so that I can plug it in without having to remove the tank to work on the electrical connection. I'm kind of leading towards the lift pump, replacement tank, and a proper, like a Digifont Cabriolet fuel pump, so that I'm running at the right control pressure to work with the AEB engine. An 044 pump will work, which is the CIS pump, which does about double the pressure of the Digifont pump. Now I know that I have a really clean 75 Swallowtail fuel tank. So if someone out there in YouTube land, if you need a 75 fuel tank, and it's not too long after this episode airs, I have one. Get in touch with me, either leave a comment and I'll hit you up through email or whatever, but I have one that I'll probably be pulling out that's in pretty good shape. So one of those things, for a period correct restoration, you need all the right parts, but in this case we're not going for that, so it's going to cost a little more money to do it the way that I want to do it, but ultimately I know that the back end will be right. And the other thing that I have to consider with this fuel tank and the sender mounting in from the side is I don't know if there's actually room to mount a fuel pump between the frame rail and the fuel tank. So it seems like there's less room there. It would be really tight to get the fuel tank there. Plus starvation issues, I'd have to try to get some kind of baffling in the center of the tank, or running a fuel accumulator somewhere. It just doesn't seem like it's worth the hassle. So a couple things I wanted to touch on before the end of this episode. One is I've been watching some builds online. There's a really intense build that went on last week overseas in South Africa. Some of you may know it. It's the Orchid Euro citigolf build, which is going to end up, I think right now, it's on a boat to Germany. The car is done. They've driven it across South Africa. I think they put 1,200 kilometers on it. They did all that in a week. So they repainted it, reupholstered it, basically all new running gear front to rear, new wiring harness. I mean, they went through like a complete restoration in a whole week. Granted, he had a huge team of people supporting him. He had Volkswagen of South Africa supporting him, like Udinger. So many companies came together for just to support that build. So it was really neat to see all of the companies support a build of a Mark I chassis car. I kind of feel a little bit, it's like, my goodness, I've been working on this car for a year pretty hard, and it's nowhere even close to driving. So kind of a reality check for me. Like, the car should be like running and driving and ready to go on a transport truck to get to the East Coast so that it can be shipped to Germany for the Wörthersee thing, which I'm not going to make. There is no way, no how that I'm going to make that trip happen. So I apologize for not getting all of my, getting all of my feces co-located to get this car on the road, but unfortunately there's just been so many other things going on. One of the neat things going on, and why this episode has a little bit less vehicle content and a little more talking, is we have chosen a rallycross car for 2018. Don't get your hopes up. It's not. I've looked at a whole bunch of cars. Tried to get a Toyota FX16 GTS, which was a really cool car with a 4AGE motor in it. That would have been a really fun car to rallycross, kind of a unique looking car. That I missed out on that by a couple of hours. I went and looked at a Scirocco 16B that had been sitting for like 10 years, and it was fairly cheap. It was like $700, but it's sitting for 10 years. I was looking at a lot of the same issues that I'm having to deal with on the 83 GTI, and I just can't, building this car, trying to get a car prepped for rallycross and bringing it back from the dead for 10 years. I just don't have that kind of time, working full-time and training for racing this season, bike racing, and a bunch of other stuff. So kind of got to manage my expectations for what I'm going to get done in 2018. So, but we have selected a rallycross car, and next week's episode is going to be all about going and getting that car, getting it cleaned up, and kind of going over the things that I need to do to get that car prepped to race in the stock class for this season. So that is going to be a little bit exciting. Like I said, don't get your hopes up. We're on a tight budget this season. My budget for getting the car prepped and getting everything on it and ready to go to the first event in April is, let's say the whole budget is going to end up having to be less than what I was going to pay for the 16B Scirocco that had been sitting for 10 years, and even more less than what I was going to pay for the FX16. So we're on a shoestring budget this season, but we're just going to go out there with the intent of having fun, racing in the stock class like we did with the Prius last year, and we'll see if we can take home some trophies this year with a really inexpensive car. So you have that to look forward to for next week. You can throw your guess on what we're going to be campaigning next year in the comments below, but you're going to have a whole week to make your speculations. So, but I will tell you, I will give you a hint, is that the wheels that I ran on the Prius last season will fit on the car for this season, which is good because I don't have to buy new snow tires, so that saves me a couple $100. So that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. I will put a link to the citigolf build that Jamie Orr did for Orchid Euro in the link below, because hey, you know what? He's done an amazing job of propagating the Mark I's and generating some real excitement for these cars, not only here but all over the world. So I'll put a link to his build below if you guys want to check it out. And don't forget to throw in your speculations as to what you think the rallycross car is going to be for this season. The person that comes closest to being right will get a pair of Throttle Grotto stickers mailed to them. So Let's see what you come up with. So until next week, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget, get out there and work on something.